the Big Ten championship game, Clemson, and Davis's new neck tattoo. All that next on Dotting the I with Davis and Chad. What's up, Buckeye Nation, and welcome back to Dotting the I with Davis and Chad. This is episode 15, and it is championship CFP time.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I know that we haven't been able to kind of get some episodes out there like we've wanted to lately. Chad could probably attest to a lot of the things that have been going on, but we finally...
I had the plague.
Yeah, some sort of plague.
Yes.
But... we did miss out on another video episode opportunity, and Chad still has a lot of bets he has to pay up on. So at some point, this is going to happen. Yeah, it may have to happen again next year or something. I don't know, but at some point we're going to get together. We're going to do these video episodes occasionally, and you will get to see Chad pay up on these lost prop bets from this season.
Oh, I guarantee I'll pay up on them. Things just haven't been easy this year. I think that goes for everyone. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm happy that we're going to be talking about Ohio State football today, which I didn't know going into that Northwestern game whether we would be talking about it this week or not.
So why don't we go ahead and give a quick recap of what our feelings were about that Big Ten championship game, because there's a lot to actually unpack in that, and it doesn't seem as much of an issue now that we've made it through to the college football playoff, but I still think we need to address it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, looking at that game, I think I went through about every emotion you could.
Well, I even tweeted from our fan page that, I would have tweeted a lot more during the game, but it's really hard to tweet when one hand's on a beverage and the other's on your forehead.
Oh, so, I know. Yeah.
It's just... that game was so disappointing, but that was my initial immediate reaction as I'm watching it. I'm just constantly shaking my head saying, what the hell are we doing, boys? Like, what is happening? Like, this is awful. Like anything else, once I give myself some time to process it and then I go back and kind of rewatch it, I have a little bit of a different feeling about it. But what was your immediate reaction to that game?
Man, there's a couple of things that stuck out at me, and I'm not going to get to, we talk about on the show, we don't want to get to X's and O's because, the average listener is not going to be into X's and O's as much. A general synopsis of it, man, I think it was very apparent how much Chris Olave means to this offense, number one. Number two, I don't know why we didn't start running the ball until the fourth quarter. Number three, Justin Fields, man, he has an issue, man, about holding on to the ball too long, waiting for something to develop when it's probably not going to develop. And honestly, it makes me half suicidal.
Okay, so I don't disagree with some of the things that you brought up there. I agree with the things that you had said to an extent. Obviously, Chris Olave is extremely important to the passing game because of not just his ability, but he also kind of frees up other guys in the passing game, the tight ends, Garrett Wilson, even, the third option, or even passing out of the backfield or check downs to the running back. So when you don't have Olave out there and they know, Garrett's going to have to be more the go-to guy, especially with the Northwestern team that almost leads the country in passing defense because they drop like 7-8 people every time. That's exactly what we got. And the issue was we tried to pass to open up the run. We should have been running from the beginning to open up the pass because they were giving us the run. They continued to give us the run the entire game. Like, had Trey Sermon started running the ball at the beginning of the game, he probably would have had 500 yards of rushing. Like, it would have been stupid. It's okay if Justin Fields has 100 yards passing if that's what they're giving us is rushing the ball. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how we get 500 plus yards a game. Take what the defense gives you. And I think Ryan Day, that was probably his poorest coaching that he's done since he's been at Ohio State, in my opinion, because I think it was very obvious and apparent that the passing game was going to struggle because we were missing Olave, the way that Northwestern plays their defense, and the fact that you were starting to get a hot Trey Sermon coming off a really good game against Michigan State. I thought we should have been running the ball early and often, and it wasn't the case. So I think it was pretty much a combination of that. Now, Justin Fields, I give him a little bit of pass for that game because he was kind of dealt, some bad cards with missing some people, but there's still some things that he did in that game. And again, he takes way too many sacks. Way too many sacks. For me, it is not worth the 1 or 2 times he will run for 20, 30 yards downfield for him to get sacked 3 times. I would give up that 20, 30-yard run every time for him to just get rid of the ball or check it down quicker. Because, one, over the span of the game, that's going to be better because these sacks is a loss to down and, you're losing 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. And as long as he can get rid of the ball or check it down and still gain a few yards, that can more than make up for that positive play and not kill drives because that's what those sacks do. And a lot of the times, we're getting negative plays in the red zone, which is a whole nother issue that we're going to have to address with the Clemson matchup.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I think there's a lot to unpack. It was just an absolute shit show, like you said, with play calling, with just everything. Nothing seemed to be working right. And I'm just, there's a part of me when I look at the Northwestern game and then, as we get into the Clemson match coming up here, it makes me wonder, who is this team? What is this team? Like, I really don't know. Are we a running team or are we a passing team? Or are we a combination team? Because to be honest, dude, and be serious, until 2 weeks ago, we didn't have a running game. It's been 2 weeks coming. That's it.
Even though it didn't seem like we had a running game, we were still averaging over 200 yards rushing on the ground every game. We were actually, for the most of the season, technically a balanced team. Before we move too much further, I at least want to address the fact that Trey Sermon set the Ohio State single-game rushing record, beating out Eddie George for first all-time with 331 yards. Like, what are your feelings on that? Like, my initial reaction was, like, of all the guys, like Trey Sermon, I kind of expected to be like a J.K. Dobbins or a Zeke Elliott or, someone that kind of we recruit and is, we kind of bring up. But my first reaction was like, really? Of all the people, Trey Sermon? And then the more I, kind of let it sink in, I'm like, all right, hey, Trey Sermon, listen, he's a Buckeye now. And whether he's been here a year or 4 or 5 years, really proud of the guy, really happy for him. And it was pretty cool to see that thing happen.
See, while I respect that he had a heck of a game, and I'll always be this way because I'm a purist. I'm the same way when it comes to baseball and records. I'm really big into records, and I'm really big into tradition, and stuff like that. And when I look at this, it's great for him. He had a heck of a game, but it's sad for me because Eddie George was such a great running back, you know what I mean, for longer than Trey Sermon has been a running back. You know what I mean? He's a staple in Ohio State football history.
But I don't think that doesn't take anything away from Eddie George, in my opinion.
Well, it takes away the record.
Well, yeah, but Eddie George is set for life in Ohio. Like, and he's such a nice, well-spoken. Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing that Eddie George could do or get taken away from him that would lessen anything. And I think maybe we're not in that position. Maybe more as fans, we may not like that as much. But I guarantee Eddie George is completely okay with his record being beat.
See, I disagree. If you're Babe Ruth and you hold the all-time home run record, you know what I mean, and some kid that plays only 2 years in the league and nobody hardly knows his name breaks your record and then, falls off the face of the earth because he's not – Trey Sermon's a great – kid and he's a good running back. I'm glad we have him, but he's not going to be an all-time Buckeye great. He's not.
No. I agree.
So that's a little tough. I'm just saying from a nostalgia standpoint, it's hard to swallow for me because
I get what you're
saying.
Eddie
George fan.
Well, listen, okay, I get what you're saying, but back to the game, like the thing too, not even just the rushing yards and that, Trey Sermon kind of put the team on his back and the offensive line in the running game looked amazing. The body language of our team is awful. And the only one that really looked like he was held determined to win that game was Trey Sermon. Justin Fields didn't look like he was in it. The wide receivers didn't look like they were in it. Some of the defensive play, like I'll give the defense credit. Like, sure, Northwestern doesn't have a great offense, and they stepped up and got a key interception, which Justin Hilliard, that boy needs to be starting. And I would replace him with Tough Borland in a heartbeat. I'm sorry, replace Tough Borland with Justin Hilliard in a heartbeat, even though it's not going to happen. But Justin Hilliard needs to be on the field.
I agree.
But I digress about all that. But, man, we just had no fire. In that game, we had no fire. Like, I don't care if they've got our number, man. If we out-effort them with the talent we have, we could call every wrong play in the book and still beat them by 20.
This is where I'm going to come we're at a point in the season, and I understand where, we've only played, we haven't played as many games as everybody else. But my point is, the point where we out talent people is over. Now we've got to play football. But you know what I mean? Like, we can't rely on that anymore.
Right.
We've got to have that, like you said, we've got to have that something extra, that fire. Things have to go on all cylinders. Everybody has to play at the top of their game. Like, we're at a do or die situation, and to be totally honest, the team has not shown us that this year.
Right.
We haven't.
Let's go and lead into the Clemson preview. So obviously the CFP came out and we moved up to the number 3 spot. Notre Dame in at 4. We're not really going to spend any time on Notre Dame, Alabama, because I don't feel like it needs any time. And if you want to listen to that, you can go find another channel that wants to talk Alabama, Notre Dame. We want to talk Ohio State. So we're going to go ahead and start previewing this Clemson game. So early line came out at, I think, 6.5. I think it's around 7.5 right now, roughly. Clemson's favored by a touchdown. And to be perfectly honest, I feel like that number's a little low. Now, do I think they're 7 points better than us? I don't know, because one thing that we're going to get into is obviously the lack of games. I think that at least talent-wise, probably pretty close to even across the board. They might have us in a few spots. We might have them in a few spots. But talent-wise, I think it's pretty even match. And that's why, especially last year, it was, such a good game. And I fully expect that it's not going to be any different this year. I just think that there's so much unknown because of the lack of games. We don't know, we're not in rhythm. We've not really seen what this team can do. We've not had players get enough reps. I'll let you get into all the Dabo Swinney stuff. But, I think it's just this year, more than any other year, there's just so much unknown going into this game.
To be honest, I've thought about this game several times, and I've rewatched every Ohio State game so far this year. And honestly, man, I really think it's going to come down to 3 things. And this is what I've got beat into my own head. I think it's going to come down to A, play calling, and more specifically, play calling and execution in the red zone. B, the defensive line. I feel like we haven't put pressure on hardly any quarterbacks this year. And I think that's going to be a big factor going against Goldilocks. And, number 3, like you said, the kind of attitude that we bring. Do we bring that fire? Do we come out firing on all centers? Do we look like a wet turd like we did against Northwestern? I think all those things are going to matter.
I also think it's going to matter also whoever scores more points in the game. Like
there's no way that feeling. That's
important. So if you look at last year's game, now I understand that we have a different team and Clemson has a different team. I think we have more of a different team than Clemson does from last year. But we were the better team last year. And we didn't win. And sure, we had a bad targeting call that kind of got jump-started their offense. I had a bad, fumble 6 that got called back, and a few other pass interference calls that were questionable. And all of those, sure, if those would have gone a different way, it would have been different. But at the end of the day, what really lost us that game was our red zone offense. We came away with 3 field goals in the red zone. So instead of being up 28-0, we were up 16-0. We cannot afford to do that again, because I think that's ultimately what's going to happen in this game. I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball between the 20s, because our defense, statistically, if we give up a play of 20 yards or more, we are usually giving up at least 3. But on almost, I think, 95% of the drives where we're not giving up a 20-yard play, we're not giving up any points. So I think what we're going to do, especially against Clemson, is we're going to, still try to play them as tight as we can, but not let the big plays beat us and let it move down and tighten up in the red zone if we need to, and kind of pull the same thing they pulled on us last year. And ultimately, if they, gain 500 yards, but we only give up, 17 or 20 points, that's a big difference. Because that's ultimately what we did last year. Is we had over 500 yards of offense and had 23 points. Only we're talking 4 field goals and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's terrible.
I'm worried about our secondary, who has shown flashes of good and flashes of bad all season long. This will be the biggest test, obviously, that they faced all year long. And I feel like if we can't find a way to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be a long day. Especially because we're going to be playing. I already know we're going to be playing a lot of zone, and we're going to be giving up those short passes in lieu of giving up the long passes. I know that, but at the end of the day, man, they're going to dink and dunk us all the way down the field. And I think it's really gonna.
But
I think it's
we
really
have good linebackers, man, and linebackers that can actually play in coverage. So I'm okay with that because we can be opportunistic. Listen, a lot can go wrong between the 20 and 20. Would you agree?
yes,
Like
but here's the statement I wanted to
fumbles,
make.
interceptions, penalties, things like that. A lot can go wrong. It's a lot easier to score when you're scoring in 2 to 3 or 5 plays as opposed to trying to put 10, 12 plays together and how many things that could possibly go wrong in that span.
Well,
So,
this is. I have a question for you, and I've
okay.
been keeping this one in the holster since we haven't really talked about it yet. This is the first time for everybody out there that we're actually discussing this game. Usually we talk 2 or 3 times before we actually even get on here, but this is the first time that we've discussed this game. So I've been holding this one in the holster, and that is this. Is this Ohio State team this year better than the Ohio State team last year?
No.
Is the
No.
Clemson team this year better than the Clemson team last year?
That I don't know, but I'm probably going to say about the same. I think they've gotten a little better on offense. I still think their defense is good, but I don't think their defense is as good as it was last year. So
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I'd say they're pretty close, but I don't think we're as good. But again, we were the better team last year, and it looked pretty clear for the most part, minus 2 or 3 plays that Clemson had, and we looked like the better team. Do I think Clemson's the better team right now? Yeah. Do I think if we got to play an entire season, would we probably be the better team? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say so because Clemson, if you look 6 games in on their season, they didn't look spectacular like world beaters. I mean, sure, they beat the Citadel 49-0, but of course I'm being sarcastic, but
Yeah.
they didn't look like world beaters. And they finally started putting things together at the end of the season, and they played their best game against Notre Dame in the ACC championship game.
I just
And
feel like Ohio State is
but
not.
that's the best you're going to see Clemson, most likely. That's kind of their ceiling, is what they just did to Notre Dame. You have not seen Ohio State's ceiling. So the biggest question is, what kind of game is Ohio State going to play? You've seen it in spurts where, we can go a quarter or a half where we're playing close to what our ceiling can be, and then we play awful for the other quarter or the other half. At the end of the day, there's just so much unknown, and I think my biggest fear about this is that I think we have a team that can beat Clemson, but I don't know if we've had enough reps and enough time for everyone to be on the same page for us to actually be able to put it together and do it on the field.
I agree, and not only that, every game we've been missing pieces, and had to plug and play people and move people around, and I feel like everybody's getting some, but not everybody's getting a lot, and I think that's really going to factor in, man. Just the experience. And the fact that I don't know if our team really has a true identity. I mean, I really don't. There's been games where Justin Fields has ran a lot. There's been a couple games where we've decided we want to run the football. There's been a couple of games where we pass a lot. I mean, there's just been no clear-cut, view of what this team is supposed to be. And I really think at the end of the day, it's going to be how well we execute plays and what kind of adjustments Ryan Day makes during the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting on good points. And, you listen to the country completely bash Ohio State, saying that they changed the rules for us and
Twice.
that we didn't deserve to be in.
Yeah,
and,
twice. Yeah, I've been hearing
of course,
everything.
Dabo, like completely going back on what he said at the beginning of the year, which almost, and I quote, it's going to be a crazy year. There's no telling how many games people get in. We're just looking for the 4 best. Well, now that he got to play a bunch of games, sure, he's going to change his tune and say, well, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be in there. Which, if you want my honest opinion, I think what he's most worried about is the fact that Ohio State now holds one card that Clemson can't, and that is the element of surprise, because there is limited game film that they can watch, especially with not everyone at full speed and 100%. So we can come into this game and show things at them that they've not seen on film, not seen on tape. And one of the things that their defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, apparently does is he's really good at diagnosing plays, being able to see what's coming from, different formations and, typically what coaches will do. And now whether that's actually knowing that much or sign stealing, which is something that Clemson is kind of known for, but basically knowing what defensive play is or what offensive play is going to happen and putting the right defense out there, I think he's going to have a lot more of a difficult task in this game trying to diagnose what we put out there. And I think we're going to put a lot of different new stuff that has not been on film. And I think we've still been holding on to a lot of things that we've not been able to use. I think that has been the one benefit that we can have in this game is the element of surprise. But other than
First
that,
of all, now it's my turn to come on court.
Oh God.
Dabo Swinney is the biggest piece of shit in college football. I'm going to say that. Before today, this is not before all these comments he's made in the last couple weeks. I have told you this for the last year and a half. I hate that man. I hate him. I think he's ignorant. I think he's childish. I think he's arrogant. I think he's everything that I hate about college football. I will put it like that. And I will say this. At this point, all I care about is ramming it up or down. You can pick which orifice I'm talking about. Because I'm telling you right now, this is never going to end until we beat them. Because as much crap as he's talking, he deserves to talk it. Because he's kicked our butt. What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The only way to stop it is to beat him. And, I feel like, getting a finger on the pulse around town, do you feel like Clemson is becoming a rivalry, on the level of a Michigan or somewhere in that nature?
Well, it's hard to put it on the level of a Michigan because that is a tradition. And that's something that's been over 100 years in the making.
But that's you and me because we have a different experience. What about new kids?
Nonetheless, this is definitely a rivalry. A rivalry because the games are now important every time we play. And
if you're 18,
literally barring one game, the one that we lost 31-0 with JT Barrett, where we literally could not do anything once we got in the red zone. All the other games we played against Clemson have been super competitive. I mean, back with Braxton Miller in the Orange Bowl, we were leading that game till the very end. Obviously, last year in the CFP, we were leading that thing till almost the very end. It's been super competitive for everyone to come out and just say, oh, well, Clemson's 4-0 against you. You're also counting one where, that's the Woody Hayes punch, where I think they won 16-14. So the fact that Clemson's 4-0, I get it. They haven't lost. But to sit there and say that Clemson owns us in regards to the games aren't even competitive is ignorant. I mean,
no, but name another team that has a better winning record against us than Clemson.
They don't. They have the best record. But what I'm saying, though, is that people immediately just say, oh, well, Clemson's going to kill you. Clemson's going to kill you. First of all, the one year where we thought Ohio State was actually going to kill Clemson, Clemson shot us out. But all the other times we would have said, oh, well, Clemson's, the better team, blah, blah, blah. It's been super competitive. But I guess the main point that you're trying to make that I will agree with is I do think it's a rivalry. And it kind of has the feeling like Clemson's the villain. And maybe I'm saying that from the Ohio State perspective, but it just kind of seems to me that, he's the one that's egging stuff on. He's the one that's making these snarky comments. He's the one that kind of you feel like he's kind of giggling, laughing behind the curtain or something. Clemson kind of feels like the bad guy in a lot of this, or is that just me? It feels
like that. Well, it feels like that to us. But if you look at I see this stuff on Facebook, all these memes and posts in these groups and stuff like that I follow. It seems to be a narrative amongst pretty much anyone that's not a Big Ten fan that we shouldn't be here. We don't deserve to be here. And that's pretty much what he's portraying. He's speaking for all those people. So I think he's gaining a lot of momentum from people outside the Big Ten that don't like Ohio State, which, as you know, is damn near everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call it Ohio against the world. I mean, if you're not an Ohio State fan, most of the time you probably hate Ohio State. So
and
if
I
you're
hope that you get some kind of a diarrhea or some kind
of yeah, pretty much. I agree, but I definitely think it's a rivalry. The only way at this point to shut them up is to just go out and beat them. And we should have took care of business last year. We didn't, even though we may not have the same team, even though we may be undermatched a little bit more this year. That's why we keep score. That's why we lace them up. And I just think we have to have one hell of a game plan and one hell of a game from all of our, star players to pull this one out.
Well, let me ask you this. A loss in this game for Ohio State, what would that mean or how would that reflect on Ryan Day's legacy?
I think it's a little early for his legacy to be tarnished, or even if he wins the game and obviously goes on to win the national title, then obviously that's going to do a ton for his legacy this early on. But in regards to if he loses this game, I don't see it really tarnishing his legacy because, again, like we've just listed off, Ohio State has got a lot of things working against them in this game by no fault of their own, by no fault of Coach Day. We started later. We've not been in sync. We've had players out. Even Coach Day's been out. It's just, if he loses this game, I don't think that's going to be reflected negatively on him. And unfortunately, it's not like I'm going to give him just a free pass because of the things that happened this year, but the odds are definitely not stacked in our favor with everything that's happened. So I don't think it's going to be anything negative. The only exception of if we literally come out and throw an egg just like we did in 2017.
Yeah.
If that happens, then that's a different story because, at the time, Urban's lost some games here or there and also some weird games with us, but he also, was like 108 and like 19 or something stupid like that with us. We always expected, at least to get mostly our best out of him, and for him to get shut out, especially in a playoff game, like that was embarrassing.
It was.
And I can at least be disappointed, but hold my head up high if it's a close game and we fought and you could tell the players played hard and the coaches coach hard. And if we just got beat by the better team, we got beat. But I don't feel like that ever really happens because I feel like whenever the team's actually that much better than us, we actually play up and play better. And we usually lose stinkers.
Yeah.
I will give Clemson credit. They did win the national title of the year. They beat us 31-0 with Deshaun Watson, but they weren't 31 points better than us. It was just
Right.
It was a horrible game plan, horrible decision making in the red zone, and it's hard to stop Deshaun Watson in college. Now,
Well,
Texans
we're going
is
to find
another
out here in a
story.
couple of days.
Well,
So-
here's what I say. I say first play, you do all out blitz. I don't care if you get home, but someone knock him so freaking hard into the ground. Hell, put a backup in there. It's okay if he gets tossed out of the game. Someone ring his freaking bell first play of the game and let him know that we're out there to hit someone. Because listen, we tried to play as clean a game as we could last time, and I swear you can go back and look at all these little dinky-danky things that didn't get called. I mean, even on that play where last year where Sean Wade got the targeting call, you can see Chase Young being held by his face mask so he couldn't even get to the quarterback. But they don't call that, and then they call that ticky-tack, targeting call. And then Trevor Lawrence, even after the game, saying, oh, well, I kind of, milked it to really help get the call. If we're going to get thrown out for something, we're going to make sure you feel it. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm almost getting to a point where I'm, like, past hating them. Like, I want them to hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, and this is where, I'm going to be watching because I don't think I've ever seen a game where there's been so much billboard material for Ohio State. There is a ton of billboard material out there, and it's not just Dabo, it's nationwide. Nobody thinks we can win this game. And I'm going to tell you what, if this team doesn't come out inspired and ready to go and ready to rip someone's heads off, I'm going to turn to the coaching staff.
Right.
I am. This team should be ready to roll.
I agree. What I want to see more than anything on Friday, I want to see people hustling. I want to see people hitting hard. I want to see you giving it everything. Do I think that, we are still a long way away from a finished product? Absolutely. I think it's coming out playing inspired, like you said, but I also think we need to play smart. And that's mainly for the defensive backs to play good assignment football and not bite on early routes and all this other stupid crap where we've given up big plays. Play with your hair on fire, but play assignment football, man. Sure, you may see this, this route going here, and you may think you have a bite on it to make that pick six. That would be great, but don't do it if that's not your assignment, unless you know for sure someone is over the top of you to protect whatever you're letting back past you. I mean, just be smart, man. Play hard, but be smart.
Okay, so I guess we're down to brass tacks now, man. Give me the score prediction. Where you at?
I'll be honest. I haven't even really thought about it, to be honest with you. Actually, tried to play it out in my head. I don't know. I kind of want you to go first. And I know that you're wanting me to go first, but I want to hear where you're at first. Because, listen, I think we talked a little bit before we started recording. We said, this is going to be the hardest part of the episode because, at what point are we trying to be homers and make a score prediction based on wanting Ohio State to win? And at what point are we making a prediction on what we realistically think may happen?
Well,
and
this
I
is
think
the first time.
That's the dilemma where we're at.
This is the first time I've ever been in this position. I told you before we started this that I feel like Kirk Herbstreit right now, because you know what I mean. Do you side with your heart or do you side with your brain? Because I feel like there's two different ways to look at this game.
There
I've
is.
always thought since we got matched up here, and I sat and thought about this game for about 25 minutes. I think this game's going to go one of two ways. I think either we're going to get beat badly, or I think it's going to be a one-score game. And I'm going to go with a one-score game. And I'm going to pick the score to be Ohio State 38 and Clemson 35.
Wow, that's really high scoring. And that means that you only got one field goal and 5 touchdowns on each side, which means there's not going to be any red zone defense. I don't see it that way at all.
Well, I'll
Now,
tell you what, if we don't score a lot of points and if
I
we
know,
don't score
I
touchdowns,
agree.
we won't win.
I understand. First of all, I think if our defense actually plays their best game of the year, but we're also playing against the best offense that we've faced all year, I think realistically we're probably not going to be able to keep Clemson under 24 points, no matter what. So I think Clemson scores minimum 24, and I'm going to go ahead and give them an extra touchdown just because, you know, it's going to be really hard to play your absolute best game or your ceiling game. So I'm going to give Clemson 31, which means then I'm going to have to come to what do I honestly feel like we're going to do? Because I feel like we're going to be able to move the ball and run the ball. It's just all about the red zone. It's either are we going to score big plays from outside the red zone and get in, or if we get into the red zone, you know, are we getting 7 instead of 3? I think that we're going to score at least 21 points, whether that's or 20 points, whether it's from a couple touchdowns, couple field goals, 3 touchdowns. And then I think there's going to be 2 other times they're going to be in the red zone that if we have to take threes on them, that's going to put us at 27. If I think we get those touchdowns, it's going to put us at 35. I'm probably going to stay, and there might be a little homer here. I just can't get myself to do it, but I'm going to go Ohio State 35, Clemson 31.
Okay. So you kind of feel, other than maybe the
well,
way that
it's
it
like
goes
well,
down,
it's
we're
like
pretty
once you
close.
said that score out, it just seemed high. But then the more I think about it, both of these teams understand the other team has weapons and speed and the ability to score at any time. So I think what's going to end up happening is these teams are going to go ahead. I think we're going to run into a little bit of kind of the Florida against Alabama SEC championship game. Maybe not necessarily as high scoring because I think, you know, both these teams have better defenses than those two teams combined, even though Ohio State's not really shown it yet. But I have a feeling that they're still going to get a lot of points because we're going to intentionally try to keep from the big play happening, which means the ball's going to get moved into opponent territory almost at will on pretty much every drive, with the exception of if any penalties or turnovers happen. Plus, you know, that's the X factor that, you know, we can't anticipate and we don't know. I mean, who knows if, you know, Lawrence throws 2 picks and they fumble a couple times, or, you know, if we get a block punt or something like that happens, or, you know, Fields, unfortunately, likes to throw picks against, you know, Clemson and other teams that play good defense. So for all I know, you know, I think that's where the blowout's going to come in, is if, you know, Fields is turning the ball over. But I'm going to stick with 35-31.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I can't believe I'm saying this. Usually I'm like super excited for an Ohio State game, and I think I've said that in darn near every podcast we've done. I'm more nervous for this game. That's where I'm at. I'm excited, but I'm nervous.
Well, see, I'm a little different. I don't get nervous in games like this the same way that you probably do. I get nervous against teams that we're supposed to beat. It just seems like it could be fluky. Like I get nervous against Penn State. I get nervous against Michigan sometimes. Just kind of because, you know, sometimes the rivalry games or tough games like that, like fluky stuff could happen. In this game, this is going to be basically, it's going to kind of feel like the Alabama game from 2014. And the reason why I say that is, you know, all the other things I've listened to and I've seen on TV and I'm reading, no one is picking Ohio State to win this game. They are at least saying it's going to be competitive, or at least they hope it's going to be competitive, but no one is picking Ohio State to win this game. No one. And the same thing happened in 2014 where everyone had Alabama winning.
Right.
I think it's a very similar game like that. So my expectation into this game was not as much nerves. It was just listen, just come out play by play. Let's fight. Let's see what happens. And as the game kept going on, I started believing and believing and believing. And man, when the clock finally finished at 0-0 in that game, that was probably one of the happiest times I was as a Buckeye fan. And I'm hoping it's going to be kind of more of a repeat of that. Do I think the talent disparity, at least perceived talent disparity, is the same as that? No, I think we're closer. So I don't think it's going to be looked at as big of an upset or as big a surprise if Ohio State wins this. But with everything that Ohio State has had to go through this year, and I really don't think people fully understand. Like, these kids didn't get to go home for Thanksgiving. They didn't get to go home for Christmas. Justin Fields has probably only had a conversation with his dog in his apartment. Like, these are kids that are 19, 20, 21, 22 years old that are basically having no social life. And imagine how old, when you were that age, what was your social life like?
Oh, yeah.
So to honestly imagine what these kids have gone through, it's almost like a part of me, man, I want it for these kids so bad. And I want all of this that they've gone through to pay off for them. So I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. But I mean, I'm hoping for the best, and I'm hoping we do play our best game of the year.
Well, I'm hoping that too, man. And here in 4 days, we're getting ready to find out. Ohio State versus Clemson. I tell you what, this is my Super Bowl. It really is. I feel like you said, about Alabama. I feel the same way about this Clemson game. I didn't give a crap whether or not we beat Oregon or not. My Super Bowl was beating Alabama. And this year, my Super Bowl is beating Clemson and finally sticking it to Dabo. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we get through this game with Clemson, we're not going to be playing Oregon. We're going to be playing.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to be playing a freaking Alabama team where we're going to be even bigger underdogs, which means if somehow we can pull through this whole season, I might even preemptively say it would be the best title in Ohio State history with what we've had to go through.
Will you get it tattooed on your neck?
Ooh, neck? No. On the back? No. On the arm? No. Anywhere else? Probably not. But yeah. I will definitely get a commemorative plaque, and it will go up on my wall.
Man, I tell you what, you're a damn rebel. You know that?
And that you can guarantee that son of a bitch will be level, too.
Yeah.
I'll be out there with the level, and that thing will be, dusted off every week and everything.
Yeah. Well, as always, hey, we appreciate everybody listening. Like I said, I know it's been a while. We're going to try to get on here, and I'm sure we're going to do a post game or something a couple of days after the game, depending on what happens once we get our bearings back together. But, yeah, we look forward to this game, and thanks for listening. Davis, tell them where they can find us.
Okay, guys. Like always, if you want to get on YouTube, I post them on there. But if you're just kind of out and about and you like to use Spotify or iTunes or iHeartRadio or Google Play, we're on all of those platforms as well. So make sure that you give us a like. Subscribe if the opportunity is there. Don't be afraid to go over to our Facebook page. Leave us a comment. Write us a post. We still we're still in the early phases of this podcast, and the ceiling. We don't even know where our ceiling is at this year. So. Or in any year. So we're going to continue to try to work to improve this thing. And, we love what we do here. We love talking about Ohio State. We love the bickering and the complaining and the arguing and all that stuff. But this has been a crazy year, guys. So if you want to reach out, you want to share anything, give us a holler. But with that being said, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Go Bucks. OH.